For years, the story of Demi Moore and Ashton Kutcher existed as a tabloid echo, a dazzling Hollywood romance that became a cultural symbol of modern love, age disparity, and the rise of celebrity transparency. She was 41, he was 25. Their marriage in 2005 fascinated and divided audiences. The pairing of an iconic actress from the 1980s and a digital age star from that 70s show seemed both improbable and magnetic. Yet after the divorce in 2013, Moore remained largely silent, until now. At 62, Moore has finally chosen to speak, not through scandal or bitterness, but through the calm of retrospection. Her voice today carries the weight of a woman who has weathered fame's distortions and found meaning in vulnerability. When she revisited that chapter recently during an intimate cultural talk in Los Angeles, it wasn't a confession. It was an autopsy of a shared illusion. "We were both trying to prove something to ourselves," she said, her tone even, deliberate. The audience listened not for gossip, but for comprehension. For nearly a decade, Moore had been portrayed as the wounded party in a marriage defined by betrayal headlines. Yet her words suggested something subtler, two human beings colliding at the intersection of youth, ambition, and self-invention. "We wanted to believe love could rewrite the math of time," she admitted. The statement wasn't self-pity, it was philosophy born from experience. The silence that followed her speech was heavier than applause. It wasn't regret that defined Demi Moore now. It was recognition. When Moore married Kutcher, Hollywood was at the dawn of the social media age. Facebook was barely public. Twitter had not yet transformed how celebrities shared emotion in real time. Kutcher himself was an early digital entrepreneur, investing in startups and using social media to craft authenticity. In many ways, he represented the future of stardom, accessible, casual, ironic. Moore, by contrast, was a remnant of the analog star system, sculpted through mystery and distance. Their marriage wasn't only about love, it was about transition between generations, between models of fame. The public viewed them as opposites, yet both were negotiating the same existential question: how do you remain visible and human at once? Insiders from the early 2000s recall Moore as fiercely protective of her privacy. Demi was old-school Hollywood, one producer recalled. She believed in the magic of not knowing everything about a star. Ashton was the opposite. He believed the more you share, the more you connect. Their love was, in essence, a cultural experiment. As years passed, that contrast deepened. Moore's attempt to rebuild after her divorce from Bruce Willis had already drawn media scrutiny. Kutcher, meanwhile, was ascending in tech circles, building a reputation as a forward-thinking investor. What began as admiration evolved into an imbalance of emotional priorities. When your partner starts living in another universe, Moore reflected in her memoir Inside Out, you start questioning which reality is real. The power dynamics shifted in public perception too. Moore was framed as the aging beauty clinging to youth, a narrative both cruel and inaccurate. In truth, she was confronting Hollywood's fear of female aging, one that still punishes women for existing beyond 40. Kutcher became an emblem of renewal, while Moore was cast as the ghost of glamour past. Years later, her recent remarks dismantle that caricature. "I wasn't trying to stay young," she said. "I was trying to stay seen." Those words linger because they expose a truth beyond their marriage, the cultural terror of invisibility. For Moore, the relationship was never about vanity. It was about identity in an industry allergic to maturity. To understand Moore and Kutcher's story, one must see it as a mirror of a larger Hollywood transformation, the era when private lives became serialized entertainment. By the mid-2000s, reality television and digital gossip blogs had merged into a new economy of spectacle. Their photographs, red carpets, vacations, and family moments were consumed not as documentation, but as drama. Moore's vulnerability during that time is well documented, but rarely analyzed empathetically. She was navigating a cultural double bind: be candid and risk ridicule, or be silent and invite speculation. When she finally broke down publicly in 2012, headlines focused on her physical collapse, not her emotional disintegration. Few asked what happens to a woman who gives her heart to a man the media keeps labeling too young. "I lost myself in trying to be everything for someone else," she once said, neither condemning nor excusing. Her honesty now reframes that admission, not as confession but as understanding. Kutcher, for his part, has since built a family with Mila Kunis, his former co-star. Their quiet domesticity stands in contrast to the flash of his earlier marriage. Moore, observing from afar, doesn't critique. She contextualizes. "We all become versions of ourselves that others need us to be," she noted in her recent talk. "Sometimes when the movie ends, you finally meet the person you truly are." Those who listened realized she wasn't just speaking about a marriage. She was articulating an era's pathology. The romance that once seemed like Hollywood fantasy now reads as a sociological document of the time. Gender roles, age expectations, media voyeurism, and the fragile myth of control. Her reflections transform what tabloids once framed as scandal into a cultural study. In this light, Moore emerges not as a victim or survivor, but as an anthropologist of her own fame. After the public dissolution of her marriage to Ashton Kutcher, Demi Moore disappeared from the limelight. What tabloids labeled as a fall from grace was, in fact, a conscious retreat, a deliberate act of emotional triage. The woman who had once embodied the confident strength of G.I. Jane found herself stripped of certainty. "I didn't know where Demi ended and the myth of Demi began," she reflected. Her recovery was not cinematic. There were no grand gestures or dramatic comebacks, only small acts of self-preservation, therapy, solitude, and the slow reconstruction of trust. Friends described her as both fragile and disciplined, a woman who understood that healing is a private revolution. She began journaling again, one confidant said. For Demi, writing was survival, her way of reclaiming authorship over a story everyone else thought they knew. The transformation was gradual. She reconnected with her daughters, Rumor, Scout, and Tallulah Willis, after years of strained distance. The family's reconciliation became one of Hollywood's rare, unsensational stories, quiet, patient, and authentic. "My daughter saw me as human again," Moore said softly in a later interview. "Not a celebrity, just a mother trying to love better." Her re-entry into public life wasn't marked by a new blockbuster, but by a book, her 2019 memoir, Inside Out. The memoir did what years of speculation couldn't. It allowed Moore to narrate her own contradictions. Critics called it brave. She called it necessary. "I wasn't writing to forgive or accuse," she explained. "I was writing to understand." That distinction matters. The memoir reframed her image not as the glamorous survivor of Hollywood, but as a case study in endurance. For readers, it was not gossip. It was anatomy. The anatomy of pain, recovery, and reinvention. Demi Moore's relationship with her body has always been central to her public identity. In the 1990s, she redefined female stardom through physical discipline, posing nude while pregnant for Vanity Fair, performing intense fitness regimens for G.I. Jane, and challenging Hollywood's discomfort with visible female power. Yet behind those acts of defiance was a quieter fear, the fear of disappearing once youth expired. When Moore speaks today about aging, her tone is no longer defensive. "It's not about fighting time," she said at a cultural forum in New York. "It's about befriending it." That sentence, so simple, carries the maturity of someone who has seen her body become a battlefield, first for admiration, then for scrutiny. The industry that once celebrated her fitness later dissected her every wrinkle. Yet Moore no longer treats age as an adversary. "I don't want to be timeless," she said. "I want to be real." Her honesty resonates in a Hollywood still obsessed with cosmetic immortality. Scholars of media culture note that Moore's evolution parallels the shift in how aging women are portrayed, no longer as symbols of decline, but as survivors of a visual war. Demi's body has always been political, noted critic Anne Helen Peterson. Her visibility forced audiences to confront their own discomfort with female aging. In recent years, Moore's public appearances on runways at film festivals carry a new aesthetic: serene minimalism. Gone is the sculpted bravado of her early fame. In its place stands a quiet elegance that rejects apology. She often credits yoga, meditation, and her Idaho retreat for helping her detach from external judgment. "Peace," she told an interviewer, "isn't a cosmetic, it's a practice." Those who listen to her today hear not an icon defending her legacy, but a woman learning how to inhabit her own skin. Moore's relationship with her 3 daughters forms the emotional axis of her later life. For years, their connection had been strained by fame's collateral damage, her struggles with addiction, the intense media glare, and the instability that followed her split from Kutcher. But as her daughters matured, the narrative inverted. They became her protectors. Rumor Willis once described her mother's evolution as watching a warrior rediscover her softness. That remark encapsulates the reversal of roles, the children becoming witnesses to their mother's rebirth. Their reconciliation wasn't orchestrated for cameras. It unfolded privately in shared therapy sessions, silent dinners, and tearful conversations that rebuilt the vocabulary of love. In her public reflections, Moore avoids sanctifying motherhood. She speaks of it as a process of humility. Being a mother doesn't mean having all the answers, she said. It means learning how to listen. Her daughters now accompany her to cultural events, appearing alongside her, not as accessories of celebrity, but as equals in a generational dialogue about resilience. Together, they represent something Hollywood rarely depicts honestly, the cyclical nature of healing. The act of raising daughters while recovering from public humiliation reshaped Moore's philosophy of life. "There's no redemption without witnessing," she wrote in a personal essay. "You need others to see your pain, not to fix it, but to confirm it's real." That awareness has transformed how she engages with fame. Once wary of public exposure, she now uses it selectively to advocate for women's mental health and body autonomy. Her participation in documentaries, charity projects, and intimate roundtables signals a new purpose: to translate her private pain into collective empathy. In this stage of her life, Demi Moore isn't chasing visibility. She's curating meaning.